Welcome to the 10 Minutes Gold Mine, where every book gives you a treasure of knowledge in just 10 minutes. What if the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best? When life falls apart, whether it's the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, or even just the loss of direction, it feels like the universe has turned against you. You may feel completely broken, overwhelmed, and unsure of how to move forward. But what if these very moments of crisis, the ones that feel like the end of the world, are actually opportunities for profound growth? In When Things Fall Apart, Pema Chödrön suggests a radical perspective. Rather than avoiding suffering, we should embrace it. Through this embracing of discomfort, we can experience the kind of transformation that would otherwise remain elusive. But how can leaning into pain lead to healing? Why do we instinctively run away from discomfort when it might actually be the path to our growth and peace? The wisdom of no escape. Imagine you're caught in a storm with no shelter in sight. Your first instinct is likely to run for cover, to escape the harsh conditions. But what if the safest and most healing thing you can do in that moment is to stop running and stand still, allowing yourself to feel the storm fully? This is the essence of the wisdom that Chödrön shares. She teaches us that instead of running from suffering, we must learn to sit with it and face it head-on. Only by doing so can we truly heal. In Buddhist philosophy, this concept is referred to as shamatha, or calm abiding. Rather than trying to escape or numb our emotions, we allow ourselves to experience them fully. When we do this, we begin to see that suffering doesn't last forever. It is fleeting, just like all other emotions. In fact, resisting suffering only gives it more power. By learning to sit with our pain, it slowly begins to lose its grip on us, making us more resilient and compassionate. But how can we begin to sit with our suffering instead of fighting it? How do we train ourselves to embrace discomfort without getting overwhelmed? One of the answers is mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation teaches us how to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. The more we practice, the more we become skilled at creating a space between ourselves and the suffering we experience. This space allows us to feel the pain without being consumed by it. It allows us to be aware of the suffering without letting it define us. The root of fear. One of the core reasons we avoid suffering is the fear of uncertainty. We all desire control, stability, and predictability. But in the grand scheme of things, life is inherently unpredictable. And the more we cling to certainty, the more we suffer. Chödrön compares our desperate desire for control to trying to hold on to water with a tight fist. It slips through our fingers no matter how hard we try to hold on. So what is the answer to overcoming fear? Chödrön's solution is to welcome uncertainty, to stay present with what's happening right now, instead of worrying about the future. The more we embrace the unknown, the less fear has the power to control us. We stop thinking that we need things to be a certain way to be okay, and we begin to find peace in the chaos. But if fear arises from uncertainty, can we truly ever be free of it? And if so, how do we change our relationship with the unknown? The key to transforming our relationship with fear is acceptance. When we accept that life is unpredictable, we stop fighting against it. We begin to find peace in the acceptance of uncertainty. By doing so, we free ourselves from the paralyzing grip of fear. This doesn't mean we stop feeling fear. It means that fear no longer controls us. We stop allowing it to dictate our decisions, our actions, and our happiness. Turning pain into compassion. Chödrön's teachings introduce the idea of Tonglen, a Buddhist meditation practice where we consciously breathe in the suffering of others and our own, and breathe out compassion, relief, and kindness. This act of intentionally taking in suffering and sending out kindness may seem counterintuitive, but it's a powerful tool for transformation. Rather than shielding ourselves from pain, we transform it into something meaningful, something that can help us grow and deepen our connection to others. This practice helps us see that suffering is not something that isolates us, but rather something that connects us to all living beings. The more we open ourselves up to pain, the more compassionate and empathetic we become, both toward ourselves and others. By embracing our own suffering, we develop greater compassion for those around us. It's not about fixing ourselves or others. It's about acknowledging and embracing the pain as a shared human experience. This is how we can use our own struggles to build deeper connections with others. When we stop seeing suffering as something that isolates us and start seeing it as something that unites us, we begin to transcend the illusion of separateness. We realize that we are all in this together. So, could suffering actually be a path to deeper connection with ourselves and others? The myth of a perfect life. In our culture, we often equate happiness with having everything fixed, finding the perfect job, the ideal partner, and the perfect lifestyle. But Chödrön challenges this myth of perfection, suggesting that happiness is not something to be fixed or achieved. In fact, the more we chase after perfection, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment and frustration. She argues that life is inherently impermanent. Nothing stays the same, not even happiness. Chödrön's key message is that we must let go of the belief that we can control life and its outcomes. We must embrace the impermanence of every experience, recognizing that everything, good or bad, is temporary. When we relinquish the need for things to be perfect, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This doesn't mean that we stop striving for better, but rather that we release the grip of expectation and allow life to unfold naturally. By doing so, we find peace in the midst of uncertainty. What would it look like to stop striving for perfection and instead embrace life as it is? This embrace of imperfection leads to greater joy and acceptance. When we let go of perfection, we stop comparing ourselves to others and start appreciating the beauty of the present moment. The pursuit of perfection often leads us down a road of frustration and unfulfillment. But when we embrace the imperfection of life, we find satisfaction and peace. The practice of staying open. A core teaching of Chödrön's philosophy is Maitri, unconditional self-love and acceptance. Too often, we are our own harshest critics, punishing ourselves when we fail, make mistakes, or feel lost. But Chödrön argues that the only way to find true peace is to treat ourselves with the same compassion and kindness that we would extend to a loved one. To cultivate Maitri, we must practice mindfulness, becoming aware of our thoughts, emotions, and actions without judgment. When we learn to observe ourselves without attaching judgment or labels, we begin to realize that we are not our mistakes or our flaws. We are simply human beings experiencing life in all its complexity. This mindfulness creates space for self-compassion and acceptance. The real challenge is how to stay open in the face of discomfort. Can we truly love ourselves, even when we feel inadequate or lost? The practice of Maitri requires patience and dedication. It's not something that comes easily, especially in a world that constantly pushes us to be better or perfect. But with time and consistent effort, we can begin to cultivate a deep sense of self-love that doesn't depend on external achievements or validation. The power of groundlessness. One of Chödrön's most radical teachings is that groundlessness, our fear of not having solid footing or certainty, is actually the path to true freedom. When we stop grasping for control, we stop creating the suffering that comes with holding on to something that is ultimately fleeting. In one of her most striking analogies, Chödrön compares this groundlessness to jumping into water. The more we struggle, the more we sink. But if we relax and let go, we float effortlessly. Life works the same way. When we stop clinging to stability and just let ourselves fall, we realize we were never really falling in the first place. So if letting go is the answer, why do we resist it so fiercely? Chödrön's answer is simple yet profound. We resist because of our attachment to control. We want to control the direction of our lives, our experiences, and our emotions. But in doing so, we make ourselves vulnerable to the suffering of constant striving. When we finally let go of this need for control, we experience a sense of freedom that comes from accepting the natural flow of life. This freedom is not found in certainty, but in the willingness to live without it. Conclusion. Finding peace in chaos. When things fall apart is not a guide to fixing your life. Instead, it is a call to transform the way we relate to life's challenges. Rather than running from pain or trying to control uncertainty, Chödrön teaches us to embrace both. Pain, suffering, fear, and impermanence are not obstacles to our peace. They are the very things that can help us grow. The key to transforming our relationship with suffering is mindfulness, self-compassion, and a willingness to stay open to whatever life throws at us. By doing so, we unlock the potential for deep healing and inner peace. So what if everything falling apart is actually everything coming together? Could the breakdowns in your life be the breakthrough you've been waiting for? That's it for today's 10 Minutes Gold Mine. If you find value in this, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have new videos each day. Lastly, if you have any book in mind that you want to listen to, feel free to type the name in the comments. See you in the next one.